All right, what's up, you guys? We're back with the 2002 pay-per-view reviews. This time around, we have one that is very coveted, one that I have been waiting for, one that I've talked about on this channel before, but one that's always great to revisit, one that's not even a chore to go back and watch. This is one of those pay-per-views that you can go back and watch at any time, and you'll find some enjoyment out of it. So why don't you tell us what we're going to be watching?
Guys, we're getting to probably one of the best pay-per-views of the year, aside from SummerSlam, and that is Survivor Series 2002. Obviously, this took place in Madison Square Garden, November 17th of 2002, with the attendance of 17,930.
And a 340,000 buy rate. Not that that matters, but hey. So this is one of those shows. I was saying this before we started recording. It was actually Madison Square Garden in New York City. It's one of those rare Madison Square Garden pay-per-views. For me, they always feel a little more special. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when it comes to Madison Square Garden, I mean, you think back at all the earlier events in the 70s, Bruno Sammartino selling out the Garden to, Vince hosting the very first WrestleMania and just events going forward after that.
Yeah. So what we have is we have a little dark match, I guess we'll bring up. Lance Storm and William Regal defeated Goldust and the Hurricane in 3 minutes and 1 second. What's the point? Why even bother? A 3 minute dark match.
Honestly, I didn't even know that existed. Um, I mean, Hurricane and Goldust teaming up. I mean, that's pretty rational 2002 tag teaming right there. But hey, William Regal and Lance Storm on the other hand, I mean, what a better pairing. It's,
Yeah, this is very 2002, like you said. And presentation wise, this pay per view, like I said, it's in the garden, so you have a little bit different presentation. Instead of the stageway, the entrance, we just have this little, the little doors, the classic doors that you would have, but they put the little LED lights over the doors. I love when they use the small entranceway for Madison Square Garden.
and you know what? It's cool too because it's actually the side entrance. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, we would see these doors throughout other events throughout time. Obviously, WWE would headline WrestleMania 20 at MSG. Obviously, they didn't use the side doors, but it's a nice little side presentation for any side, Titantrons, especially if you have fans that are sitting in those first row sections, especially when they're shooting promos, you get it live right there in center.
So starting out the pay per view at a kind of an odd way, but it sort of worked. We had the Dudley Boys, Bubba Ray and Spike, and Jeff Hardy versus 3 minute warning, which is Rosie, Jamal, and Rico. What are your thoughts on this elimination tables match?
Honestly, I still don't understand the pairing of 3 Minute Warning and Rico. I think it definitely would have sounded a lot more beneficial if it was 3 Minute Warning and maybe Eric Bischoff. Eric Bischoff doing some side managing for a while, aside of him being the main general manager. But when it comes to this match, it was a fun opener. I mean, the tables were used very well. Jeff Hardy being involved, obviously, there's going to be some type of high risk, and I mean, unfortunately, this was right around the time Hardy wasn't being utilized to that full potential that he should have deserved. Obviously, he was going through some demons and everything, but I like the end. Obviously, Devon would come back. We would see the reformation of the original Dudley Boys and not just Bubba and Spike. But I liked it. I mean, there were some sloppy spots. I will admit that there were some sloppy spots, but I think all six men, worked very well together to mold this match.
Especially the part when Jeff Hardy missed his cue for the high spot and Rico's standing up there. God damn it, Jeff! Damn it, Jeff! Come on! And he's trying to sell that he's gonna fall and he's balancing himself. Jesus. But as it's kind of one of those botches that you just gotta laugh at. It doesn't take away from the match. It's just funny. This is an overall very entertaining match. You have a good pop at Devon, of course. So very fun. But something else I do have to ask you: elimination has always been one of the, I guess, themes of Survivor Series. What it's centered around was survival. And this is one of the two Survivor Series pay-per-views that doesn't have any elimination tag matches. I think it's 2.
Yeah, for some reason I'm thinking 3, but I think it's right. Nailing the coffin right there with 2. But yeah, I mean, they tried to portray it in some way of elimination. I mean, obviously this was an elimination match. Obviously they were saving up the build up for the elimination chamber match. But yeah, it's just kind of awkward to not have one of those traditional matches um at this event.
I mean, I will give them credit. The elimination still is in there. You had the elimination tables match, you have the elimination tag team match, and of course, you have elimination chamber. So I don't know. Maybe they just didn't want to do a big elimination match because you already had the chamber match. I don't know. Like, you easily could have just thrown a bunch of jobbers or cruiserweights or something. But yeah, that's like my favorite match of the year is the traditional Survivor Series matches for WWE at least. But I don't really think it's missed here. It's not needed. It doesn't take away from the show. Like, it's fine without it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it shows some concept. And another thing that I want to bring up, obviously they haven't done it in years, but I used to love it when Survivor Series was aired on Thanksgiving Day. What a better way. You don't have to watch football. You could just sit there and watch the Survivor Series. So.
Yeah.
But one thing I do want to point out in this match, first of all, just backtracking a little bit here, I loved Jeff Hardy's version of the "What's Up" with him and Bubba Ray Dudley. I thought that was a cool combination there because obviously throughout the years we were so used to seeing the Hardys and the Dudleys, but with Jeff teaming up with Bubba, you kind of throw in a little niche of your own version of the "What's Up." Also, we would see Jeff Hardy climb to the crowd for MSG the same way he would for Royal Rumble 2000.
Yeah, this was a nice little tribute to that tables match, and that was the first ever tag team tables match in WWF. So yeah. I always like when tag team table matches include elimination. I think that's really the only way to do it. I never liked when one person went to the table, it's over. No, I think every member should be going through a goddamn table. But next up, we had a singles match for the WWE Cruiserweight Championship. We have Billy Kidman defeating Jamie Noble with Nydia. What are your thoughts on the Nydia storyline here?
Oh, man. You know what? Obviously, she paired well with Jamie, but honestly, I don't know. I mean, it was kind of just like one of those things that was just thrown in there because honestly, let's just face it. I mean, as much respect I have for the performer of Jamie Noble, I really don't think he would have broke out by himself.
No. I think he's had more success as a producer at this point than he has in WWE, unfortunately. I've always liked him. He was one of the smaller guys, though, like very small cruiserweights, and that was probably his downfall. I mean, he's a pit bull for a reason. And Billy Kidman, though, I've always loved Billy Kidman. It's one of his few, unfortunately, one of his few pay-per-view outings on a big WWE pay-per-view. I wish he would have had more. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, and you know what? The thing with Billy Kidman is he was stuck in a time where the part of the card that you were, put in ultimately led up to where you were as a competitor. So obviously, if there was a cruiserweight division, you weren't going to go any higher than that. I mean, obviously, they would change that as the years would go on. I mean, basically, Rey Mysterio practically capitalized on that. But if you want to backtrack just a little bit, I guess you could say Eddie Guerrero too when he won the WWE Championship from Brock at No Way Out. But the one thing I loved about Kidman was, the way he just utilized moves. It was just like one of those things where he didn't have to fix it because it was never broken. And the fact that he never catapulted to that main event status, unlike WCW, but obviously these are two different organizations. But obviously he had his one time big moment with Hulk Hogan. He went over on Hogan. So it's one of those things where it's just like Kidman was utilized but underutilized, if that makes sense.
Dan, turn your vibrator off before we film next time.
Yeah, my bad.
What you do in the living room stays in the living room.
God damn it.
So, next up we had, to me, I don't know if it's guilty pleasure, but I love this match. We had Victoria and Trish Stratus. It only went 7 minutes and 1 second here, but this hardcore match for the WWE Women's Championship, I thought this was fun as hell. I really did.
Well, I tell you what, this was definitely more extreme than the past pay-per-view. But I always feel like Victoria and Trish always had a great build to a great feud. I mean, obviously, this was over Victoria's jealousy over Trish Stratus. But, the way this match came about, I loved it. The way they just utilized, some of the weapons in this match, to fire extinguisher, to, dumpsters and kendo sticks. Yes, kendo sticks. The proper way to use kendo sticks. So
we had a lot of gimmick matches here. We had tables, we had a hardcore match, the chamber, even like a triple threat tag team match. A lot of gimmicks being thrown around here. I'm surprised this wasn't just a straight singles match, honestly, because there's only 2 traditional singles matches on this entire card.
Yeah. And one thing I would have to say about this match, I think everything was executed perfectly, except the finish. Obviously, Victoria would spray the fire extinguisher. She would hit the snap suplex. Like, who wins with a snap suplex?
Hey, man. It's live, pal.
Yeah. I mean, hey.
Yeah, I never liked fire extinguisher spots, ever. CM Punk and Jericho did it in 2012. I thought that was dumb. We've seen it since then. I just, no matter who it is, I've just never liked a fire extinguisher spot, even if you're trying to get that babyface heat and really sticking to the heel with the fire extinguisher. I was just never a fan. Like, where'd you get that? On your way out of MSG? On your way out on the little ramp there?
Right.
Side entrance, just pick up a fire hydrant or extinguisher. Yeah, fire hydrant. I mean, they are in New York, but
yeah,
I was never a fan of the fire extinguisher spot.
Yeah, but I mean, I did like some of the kendo stick spots. I mean, you could just hear JR saying she's like a government mule with the kendo stick.
So next up, this is where I start to have issues with the show. I only have really one big problem with this show, and it's this match. We have Big Show.
Well, here comes the pain. No pun intended. Go on.
Yeah, we have Big Show versus Brock Lesnar here for the WWE Championship. Of course, we had Paul Heyman at the side of Brock. Not much changed, I guess, in that since then. But yeah, what are your thoughts on this?
Honestly, it's probably like the best 5 minutes that we were ever going to get out of these two. And obviously, Show didn't do that bad. Brock looked like a total badass in this match. That made sense, except for the Heyman turn, which was dumb. As I would have loved to seen Heyman go further with Brock Lesnar, at least until maybe WrestleMania. But I mean, it was probably like one of the best matches you probably would have gotten out of these two combined.
Yeah, and I wanted Big Show to win, honestly.
Really?
Who wanted the fucking Big Show to win this match? Who?
No
one. This is not a Big Four pay-per-view match. Nobody said, "Oh my God, Big Show versus Brock Lesnar. That's a barn burner right there." Nobody fucking wanted that. So this to me is just a piss poor excuse for a WWE title match on a Big Four pay-per-view. This is just embarrassingly bad. This was, this is your main title. You just brought back the World Heavyweight Championship, so this is your one. Still kind of getting out of it, but this is still your big main title, and this is what you could shit out and put in your hand and put on the fucking table for us. Big Show versus Brock Lesnar. 4 minutes and 19 seconds. Fuck you.
Well, I mean, seriously, the only reason I can see them having to do this was obviously to have Brock Lesnar have a face run. But let's just admit it. Brock, I mean, he could be good as a babyface if he wanted to, if he chose to. But obviously, as the months would go by, he just wouldn't give a fuck. Obviously, his interest in wrestling was starting to die down a little bit by the time 2004 came. But obviously, everybody wanted to see Brock as a babyface.
You had a really good championship run too, and I just feel like that was just squandered for no reason here. You had the great rivalry with The Undertaker. That's main event stuff. That's as good as you can get in 2002. So you go from that to this, and it just didn't work.
No.
It just didn't work. So I feel like we should take a minute to mention a certain math problem.
Oh man.
They solved the math problem with good old Scott Steiner.
Yeah. I mean, it was a good debut for the Guardian. I mean, obviously WWE didn't really know what they had for Scott Steiner as a singles competitor. I mean, obviously they're familiar with his work as he was a former employee back in the early to mid 90s. But obviously this was Scott's breakout moment as a WWE competitor as a singles competitor. I mean, obviously he would come into the ring, he would interrupt Chris Nowinski, Matt Hardy, give me the fucking mic. On live national television. But yeah, I mean, honestly, this was obviously the beginning stages of WWE not knowing what they had with Steiner. Obviously, as the months would go on, things would drastically change. But I always been a fan of Steiner, especially during his early stuff. The Steiner screwdriver, deadly, very very deadly. I mean, I love that move so much. One of his main arsenal moves. But I don't know. Something about Steiner's promo. I don't think he should have ever cut a promo. I don't know about you. I think he should have just came in here, meleeed both Nowinski and Hardy, threw him out the ring, and then just posed for the crowd, and then arrive the next night on Raw.
Yeah, he's being treated as an attraction here. So all you really needed to do was come out, pump a little bit, and you're good to go. That's it. You didn't need words here. You didn't really need much. You honestly just needed a good 5-minute segment. Nice little entrance, do a little showboating, kick a heel out. That's really all you needed for this.
Now, I have a question for you, Freak, and I'm sure a lot of people would probably be interested in this. Christopher Nowinski, obviously he came in, he had the gimmick of, his former high school, he was a Harvard graduate and everything. But then later on, he would go on to become, a specialist, a doctor who would study the brains and specialize in concussions and how everything's caused and everything. Do you believe, first of all, your thoughts on Christopher Nowinski? Secondly, do you think if he were to portray the career that he's pursuing today, do you believe that would work in today's WWE? as like, no taking head chair shots or anything, no headshots. Do you think he would be like a vulnerable role in today's WWE?
He could. I think if he really wanted to, there's a place for him in there. I think he's burnt some bridges with the CTE, the concussion problem. But I know him more for his post WWE stuff. Just as much as I've looked into the Benoit case, obviously he's been involved there. I believe he even took a look at the brain of Benoit himself, didn't he?
He did, yes.
Yeah. He said he had the brain of an 80-year-old Alzheimer's patient. But, I respect him for the work he's done with, outside of WWE. Let's say he would have stayed in wrestling. He could have stayed in wrestling. I don't really think he would have went too far. I just don't see him as a Vince McMahon guy. And even if he were around today, I just don't really think Vince would see him and be like, "Oh, there he is, pal. That's our star." Yeah.
Right.
This. Not many people know his name. I bet some people watching this right now just don't even know who he is.
Right.
And I don't know. I wasn't really a big fan of him as a wrestler, but I respect the work he's done outside.
Because, I know this is a term that a lot of people hate nowadays, and I hate to mention it, but I believe he would probably be a good fit for the cancel culture of pro wrestling. Let's just put it that way.
So moving on, we had the triple threat elimination match for the WWE Tag Team Championship. This is obviously not the first time we will be mentioning these 6 people in these reviews. I think we said it all before, but fuck it, we'll say it again. You have 6 of the best wrestlers. I was going to say on SmackDown, but let's be honest, in the entire company at this time. 6 at the same time. You don't get much better than this in 2002. To me, this is the peak of tag team wrestling, kind of this whole run of the latter half of this tag team rivalry. This is the peak of tag team wrestling that I think WWE ever got. I don't know about you.
Well, you practically just spoiled it right there. These guys were the SmackDown 6. And it was just a role that they were on that just kept on continuing. Because let's face it, it's just been a case since the inception of those belts that the tag titles are put in yet another great match. You have these 6 go out and just exchange for like the past month. The belts have only been active around since October, since the No Mercy pay-per-view. So, to see these guys exchanging them back and forth with one another, another great match. And, this show has like another hour and a half to go.
Yeah. This match went 19 minutes and 25 seconds. Edge eliminated the team of Kurt Angle and Chris Benoit. Which team would you rather see being eliminated first? Would you rather see Edge and Rey Mysterio be eliminated first, and you would see Chris Benoit and Kurt Angle continue on, or what are your thoughts on how this was booked?
Well, the way I see it, I think it definitely makes more sense for Benoit and Angle to be eliminated first, only because of the exception of them going into one of the greatest matches in 2003. WWE Championship match between Angle and Benoit. Obviously, these guys had a brief history, and them just teaming up just creates more monumental moments for both men. So for them to get eliminated first, obviously it's going to create that buildup because let's face it, as great of a tag team they were together, they were the most formidable opponents, who can mesh real well and mold well, at the same time. So.
Yeah, they had a handful of great matches, but like you said, 2003 Rumble, holy shit. And we will get to that match eventually. We've been saying that for a while now. We're going to get to that match, I promise. That's probably my second favorite WWE match, honestly.
There's such a handful of Benoit and Angle matches. There's going to be people who say WrestleMania 17 for good reason too. I mean, obviously WrestleMania 17 was one of the best WrestleManias of all time. But when people look back at 2003, I mean, obviously the first match that comes to mind will always be Angle and Benoit.
Yeah, to me that's a 5-star match. I don't care what anyone says.
Yeah.
So Los Guerreros, I feel like we have to talk about them a little bit. I don't know if we have too much in the past. And one I especially want to talk about is Chavo Guerrero. I was always a huge Chavo fan. At this time, I gotta say I prefer Chavo over Eddie. That's gonna be very controversial, but I was always a Chavo guy. It's unfortunate some of the gimmicks he's been stuck with. What was the one? Colonel White.
Owen White.
Kerwin White. Yeah, it was just good lord. But in ring, Chavo is to me in his prime at this time. Eddie would obviously surpass him and go main event, and then Chavo just kind of fizzled out for a bit, and then he had the Rey Mysterio rivalry, and yeah, then he went to ECW.
Yeah, I mean, and you really got to look back at the time too. I mean, Los Guerreros were pretty much one of the freshest tag teams of the SmackDown era. So I don't think WWE was really ready to capitalize on Eddie Guerrero as a main event performer. Obviously, to them just bringing him back in April of that past year. After being released due to him and his, his obvious addictions that have been well documented. But to see Eddie, not only establish something for himself, but with another family member like Chavo, who would obviously excel to great heights in his own right. Um, I think they really worked well together. And obviously, those were the only two men out of this match, out of the six, that would last longer within the tag division.
Yeah, even at WrestleMania, they were tagging together, which I always kind of disagreed with that. I always thought Eddie should have had a singles match at WrestleMania, but it wasn't his time yet. We got there eventually, so that's all that matters. But overall, it's not the best tag team match we saw this year, but it's up there for sure. Yeah, I thought the No Mercy match was probably the best.
And just the thing too. I mean, Eddie practically showcased a lot of great singles matches. In the mid 2002 year. After just coming back, obviously he did some work with Ring of Honor. He actually did work a match with the Amazing Red while he was Intercontinental Champion, fulfilling the rest of his, independent obligations. And, obviously WWE was very high on Eddie because he ended up having a match with The Rock on Monday Night Raw. So obviously we would see some glimpse, some foreshadowing of what to expect of Eddie Guerrero as a main eventer. Because let's just face it, Eddie was a true heel who was loved by everybody. I don't know about every single one, but obviously everybody had that heartfelt feeling for Guerrero as a performer. He was entertaining.
And this was at a time where he was trying to prove himself again. And he was kind of on a leash. He had been arrested. He had been released. What other companies did he work for when he was released?
Oh man, I know he did some time in Japan, which I do have a DVD on. He had a Japan tour in 2002, probably like early 2002 up until his return. Obviously he did some stuff with Ring of Honor. There's another promotion. I can't think of the name, but if you look it up online, I think there's a match on YouTube. But the triple threat match that CM Punk brags about, it was him, Guerrero, and Rey Mysterio in a triple threat match.
Yeah. So finally, we have our main event for the first time ever. In 39 minutes and 20 seconds, we had the Elimination Chamber match. This was interesting because this wasn't tested. This isn't like the Rumble where it was just You know, it was tested a few times beforehand. A lot of times when you have gimmick matches, they're tested. You know, it's shown in front of a house show, live crowd. We were going in blind for this one. We didn't really know what to expect. It seemed a little gimmicky, but overall, this match itself worked. Future Elimination Chamber matches, we'll get there.
Right.
But this one to me was just an absolute fucking epic main event.
Now, I don't know about you, but I was going through doing a little bit of research on, the structure of this match. You know, things like these to construct are $250,000. Now, I need your opinion on this. I mean, I'm not really a fan of like the new generation era. Obviously I'm a big fan of like 80s wrestling, early 90s wrestling, but how conflicting would it have been if the cage was built at the same structure as like the old school steel cages?
With everyone in there?
Well, yeah. But I mean, instead of like the chains and everything,
Yeah,
it
like
would
the bars.
be solid steel.
Yeah,
Just solid steel.
Yeah, that would have been more intimidating. I always like the bar. I just call them the bar cages because they're just steel bars. Well, steel. But yeah, I prefer that over chain link. It's just not. It's obviously not as hard hitting. The audience knows that. I don't know. It doesn't look as brutal. It's just not. I mean, it's safer for the workers. It's less painful for them. That's more realistically why it got changed. But yeah, I mean, now that you put that idea in my head, I kind of hate you because that would have been so much better. Thanks.
But yeah, I definitely want to get in this match. For the first elimination chamber match, it wouldn't be the best, but goddamn, like I feel like when it comes to first of anything, movies, franchises, elimination chambers, especially Hell in a Cell with Undertaker and Michaels. You're talking about Michaels, who's practically been the first at everything at this point. First ever Elimination Chamber, first ever Hell in a Cell, first time Grand Slam champion. Shawn Michaels has proven it all, and obviously he had made his triumphant return to wrestling after a 4-year hiatus with a back injury, career-ending back injury, as I might add. But the first thing I want to bring up is those shitty brown pants. It's like, come on, you're making this epic return into the main event picture. Obviously WWE has gained some trust in your ability and the way you construct and orchestrate a match. And instead of coming out to the old Shawn Michaels, Heartbreak Kid, very well designed tights, you would think him and Pat Patterson were in the back and said, "Hey, remember those skid mark underwear I had? Here, let me do a little bit more damage, and that you have Shawn Michaels tights."
Yeah, they're the little poopy shit tights.
I mean,
they weren't. The real story is they weren't done. They just weren't finished yet.
Yeah.
You just wore them anyway. But come on, you didn't have any other tights you could have just worn. Come on. Like, nobody looked at this. I also want to know, like, in Gorilla, did anyone look at that and question it? Because if so, why the fuck didn't you say anything? Because he's winning the world title, for God's sake. Like, this picture is going to be immortalized.
Right.
Forever. The confetti, everything.
I mean, I hate to say this, as much as the event was well remembered, it's also going to be well remembered for the tights that Shawn Michaels wore during this match.
Yeah. And like I said, it's in pictures everywhere. Like, it's not just, oh, he wore him on a house show once. Just forget him. No, this was his world title win here in the Elimination Chamber match. But, yeah, luckily we never saw him again. He should have won it for Crown Jewel.
And I have another question for you, Freak, and I'm sure a lot of people may know the answer to this. A lot of them may be baffled by this. But how come Shawn Michaels never won a world title after this run?
He didn't need to.
Yeah.
But it is surprising. It really, really is. Because I mean, I think him coming back, he just wanted to have good matches. Look at his match with Chris Jericho at WrestleMania. He didn't have to be in the main event. If he wanted the main event, he probably could have had it. Maybe he just didn't want to. He's also playing good old humble Shawn Michaels here. He's a good actor. So maybe he just wanted to step away and say, no, it's not my time anymore. I want to help elevate. Because even with like Chris Jericho, he had the world title match in 2008. A lot of people thought he'd probably win that, but he didn't. He did the right thing and put Jericho over. So I think honestly, he just knew he didn't need it, and he would rather just contribute to the company than take away opportunities from others that could be contributing.
Now, here's another good question. Obviously, we know the relation between Shawn Michaels and Triple H. Not only which led up to their SummerSlam match and these matches going on, but do you believe their final show out should have been at WrestleMania 19 instead of Triple H and Booker T?
Maybe. I mean, that would have made more sense. It would have had an actual story to it instead of just, being lazy with the race card. Because that's basically all that was. Whereas if Shawn Michaels was in the picture, I mean, yeah, they already had the SummerSlam match, and let's be honest, how do you top that?
Right.
Honestly, they never really topped that one. I did like their 2004 continuation. I love their 2004 Cell match, but yeah, they never had a WrestleMania match together against each other, so which was surprising.
Right. I mean, with the exclusion of the WrestleMania 20 main event with Benoit, but obviously that's at a
Yeah, I
different.
don't count that. Yeah, that was Benoit's night. But yeah, it would have made more sense, but we also would not have gotten Chris Jericho and Shawn Michaels. Maybe that was the plan all along. Because it might have been one of those things where he's like, all right, I'm coming back. I want to work with this guy at WrestleMania. I want to work with this guy. So might have just been Shawn's choice. And once again, he didn't really feel the need to go for a world title. But it would have made sense because he just won it in November. So why not go back after it at WrestleMania?
Right. But obviously, with this match, this was Shawn's, crowning achievement of still saying, "Hey, I can still go." So
Yeah. He wouldn't hold the belt for long. This was kind of a joke to me. This was more just for the moment. And
yeah,
it's good. It's a good thing he wore his shit pants for his happy moment. He was so happy he his pants. He was nervous. I can see him in Gorilla. Hey, weren't those tights white earlier?
or just could have had the brown tights just to blend in with the shit. I mean, hey, we never know.
Yeah, Triple H is bullshit. But anyway,
But
so
I'm, but honestly, going into this, I loved everybody. I think everybody did their part in this match. RVD did his cool high spots or spots in particular. Let's not call them high spots because let's just face it, RVD, he was just good all around.
yeah,
Booker T, did his little spinneroonie and got the elimination. Kane was just the monster that he was. Jericho was his usual self, and Triple H, as always, was the Iron Man in this match.
yeah. Do you think Shawn Michaels was the right choice for this, or would you
Yeah.
have had someone else go over?
Oh no, for sure. I think Michaels was the right candidate for this choice. Because let's face it. I mean, 4 years gone. I mean, what are you really doing in that 4 year period? You're either trying to make a triumphant comeback, or you're just sitting there laying on a couch, just contemplating life. Like, why did this happen? Because you really got to think of a lot of comebacks that have happened in wrestling. Obviously, Edge, making his triumphant return at WrestleMania, the Royal Rumble in 2020. Daniel Bryan, coming out of retirement, or should I say Bryan Danielson. Even though I do say that was WWE's choice after being cleared. Because let's just face it, I think Bryan Danielson still would have gone, even if he retired or not. But for Shawn Michaels, you're talking about a guy who had a career-ending back injury, and everybody was just sitting there like, hey, he's never going to wrestle again. We'll never. I mean, obviously, he would make some TV appearances. He was part of the corporation for a little bit during those early '90s or the early '99. And he was I believe he was like the Truth Commissioner or oh boy, I forgot what he was, but obviously he was some type of CEO or Truth Commissioner during the Attitude Era. But we want to see a proper comeback until mid 2002 when he, had that really good street fight with Triple H. So for Shawn Michaels really stepping up to the plate, still proving like, hey, I still got it. Obviously, you have to rearrange some things. Obviously, you have to, just tweak your move set a little bit. Obviously, you can't really do the same things as you used to do, even though the guy was still doing moonsaults like he was 25 jumping off a ladder. But yeah, I mean, Michaels really proved a point within that short span of time. Since coming back at SummerSlam, like, hey, give me the run and I'll show you what I can do with it. But at the same time, I can understand why his title reign was so short because I believe people were still hesitant on, hey, what if Shawn was injured again? Because you really got to think about this too. 2002, Shawn Michaels wasn't practically full time as of yet. He was still wrestling here and there, but he still wasn't, week after week after week.
Well, he also wasn't the Shawn Michaels of old, because I feel like the Shawn Michaels of old would have been the Iron Man in this match, whereas he came out at number 6. Like, he had a very short appearance in this match. Well, not very short, but he had the shortest amount. Yeah, shortest amount, I'd say. So, yeah, I feel like he was still worried about being rusty. Maybe I don't want to say the office didn't trust him, but maybe they were a little more hesitant. Maybe they were letting him have a slow build till he's fully back in the ring again.
Right. Well, I mean, you got to think about that, and then you really got to think how Shawn felt because I think he was still pretty hesitant. Like, oh, what if I injure my back again?
Yes. What if I lose my smile?
He already lost that. I don't know.
Anyway, so we had RVD being eliminated by Booker T. Booker T was eliminated by Chris Jericho. Kane by Chris Jericho again. And then Shawn Michaels eliminated Chris Jericho. And then final 2, we had Triple H and Shawn Michaels. So in a way, this is like kind of that big climax to their first portion of their rivalry. Kind of that big payoff that people have been waiting for. RVD going out, being eliminated number 1, though. I mean, that's always going to bother me. But, I mean, if anything, you would think Kane would just be the one to take the first fall.
Yeah. I mean, it could have went either way, honestly. I mean, we could have had Booker T eliminated first. Yeah. Or, it could have gone either way. Either way, it was going to go down between Triple H and Michaels.
Yeah. It's a very predictable final 2. So, I don't know. If you want to talk about maybe one flaw of the match, predictability, you could probably pretty much guess who's getting eliminated if you're a fan in 2002. You can guess, all right, these 4 are getting eliminated, and then we're going to have the final 2. And not that the first half by any means is filler. This is great from start to finish. I don't know if I would say this is the best chamber match of all time. I'm trying to think here. Is this the best?
Well, one that really comes to mind, maybe. Now I'm thinking about the event too, but if you were to say like New Year's resolution 2006 when Edge cashed in, I would have said that, but obviously there's other candidates. It's just so hard to choose from. But like when you look back at this match, this was, the match that pretty much started it all. It was the founder, I guess you would say. But how can you not sit here and say that this was not the greatest Elimination Chamber match?
Yeah. And I mean, unfortunately, we would see the chamber just become a joke in a PG environment. Now there's padding instead of like the fencing on the bottom. So the chamber match, this was, it's in its rawest form. It's about as violent as it should be. I never liked when weapons were involved because, like JBL got the weapon in, 2008. He got the chair in there, started whacking everybody before he left. I never liked when there was outside interference or like drama with the door. This was just a good old fashioned chamber match. So this is probably the purest form of it that we got.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously, as the years would go on, I don't think there was any other chamber match that would top this match for good reasons, too. But I mean, as the year goes on, obviously things were improvised, things were rearranged, whether it was for the good or for the worse. But I mean, if you really look at it, I mean, the chamber match, it made some careers. It did. I mean, when you have six men, you're practically revolving your company around those six men that you can trust, or at least that you want to pursue going into the future.
Yeah, for sure. So final letter grade.
I have to give this. Mm, I want to give this a solid A.
Yeah, I reviewed this before. I think I gave it an A, and I think I got to stick with the A. I think the one kind of blemish, unfortunately, is the WWE title match. Everything else is solid.
Yeah, I mean, I can remember how good SummerSlam was, but I feel like Survivor Series can be easily forgotten because 2002 pay-per-views were just the epitome of pay-per-views for WWE at the time.
Yep.
Let's just face it, because 2002 was probably the greatest year that WWE probably ever had.
That's tough.
Or,
I would say pay-per-view wise, 2002. Yeah, that's why we're doing this.
I mean, 2002, I would say, like, in the beginning, it was a slow buildup. But by the time we got to Vengeance and SummerSlam, that's when things started to escalate very quickly into, okay, this is a pay-per-view buy.